Postmodern Art Podcast, a podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I'm your host, Nathan Ragland, and today, let's show a lot of love to a guest who has been a major part of this podcast from day one, and has grown so much since our first chat. Today's guest is suprdee, a professional cartoonist whose wealth of love can be seen through the comics he's worked on, whether it be helping Eddsworld and the Lo-Fi Girl, to his own of Life of Kurami, Pen and Ink, and Rosebuds. For those that are unaware, Dee was actually the first guest that I had on this podcast, so to get a chance to speak with him after 200 episodes since our first conversation, and to talk about how much he's been able to grow, how much more he's been able to do, and just the incredible opportunities he has earned for himself, it was honestly a real good treat more than anything else. It was a good treat for me, it was a good treat for him, and it's going to lead to a fantastic conversation that I know you guys are going to absolutely love, especially when you just get a sense of the energy and the vibe that we just have with each other as we're talking. It's a great chat, I promise. If you enjoy our guest, please make sure you support him with the links down in the description below, or check out your local newspaper. For all you know, you might be able to check Rosebuds in there. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave 5 stars wherever you can. You know I see that stuff, and you know it genuinely warms my heart. If you want to go a little further with that support, may I recommend you check out our merch shop at fourthwall.com. Link to that is in the description below. We have some outstanding merch as done by some sensational artists, including a fairly new one as done by Ketty Katzen that has a nice little sweet twist on the brand new logo, and I think you would look fantastic in that merch today. And look, if all you want is a nice, cool, casual place to where you can meet up with some of the other former guests of the podcast or other people in this community that want to grow as artists and really share the love that we have for each other, may I recommend you check out our Discord server, the Artist Sanctuary. We've already grown a lot, especially as of late, getting so many incredible people and seeing so many incredible pieces of art and such. And I think you would be a fantastic addition to that group today. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast.
What have you been?
Oh,
it's been so long.
It has been so long, and I'm good, tired, exhausted because life, but taking things one day at a time, and I'm staying positive through it all.
Yeah, I hear you. Same here.
That's
it's
good to
exhausting.
Hear. Obviously, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously, you got a lot to be celebrating for these days, more than anything else. I mean, to be fair, we had a lot to celebrate over 4 years ago when we recorded, all right?
Man, I can barely remember yesterday.
Oh, goodness. So, fun fact, I decided to go back and listen to that episode today to kind of, prepare myself and make sure I don't ask, too many questions that I asked, the first time, so that people want to, they can go back and listen to that original one. And I can tell you right now, the difference between then and now, just from the visual alone, is striking, okay? For reference, when I interviewed you then, I did not have a beard or anything like that. It was pure baby face. And the only poster on my wall was this Tyler, the Creator one. I've, visually, it has exploded, all right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then listening in on that the interview and the conversation or whatnot, you could tell just how green I was. You could really tell how nervous I was at certain points as well. This is my first time doing this kind of thing. I think I know what I'm doing, and it's I guess it's good for me because I still enjoyed the chat that we had, but it's also good for me to know that I can listen back to then and consider what I'm doing nowadays and be I've definitely grown. I definitely have.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's exciting. That's really exciting.
It really is. It's exciting to get a chance to talk to you again because honestly, I've been thinking about wanting to get you back on here for a while. Just with all the cool stuff that you've been able to do. I just felt especially now that we're actually getting close to 200, by the time this episode that we're recording is going to be episode 201. All right, literally 200 episodes since your previous episode. I figured now is a better time than any,
Yeah. We've slept since then.
Yes. Like I said, I've been wanting to have you back on the podcast for a while, and I thought now was probably a better time than any. So, thank you sincerely for taking the time to do this, man.
No, thank you for wanting me to come back. Like, I know you've had such a large list of people come on over the years, so it's cool that you considered me coming back. After all that you've been through.
I mean, like at the end of the day, you were one of a handful of people that if it wasn't for you, this podcast would not be here. Like, whenever I made that random list on Twitter, or that random like call out like years ago, and like random list being like, these are people that I want to talk to, who'd be down, and you were like one of the first to respond. Like, it made me immediately think like, okay, if I can get guys like D on this podcast, then I can do this podcast. I can do this thing. So you being one of the matches that sparked what the following 4 years came to be, it's the least I could do,
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's see. Hold on. I'm also double checking. Yeah, well, you're definitely gonna be hearing that puppy bark a couple of times. I can tell you that right now.
No, it's perfectly fine. I'm completely okay with it.
Sorry, just grabbing myself some water as well. Making sure I am ready to go for this thing. Let's see. I already gave you that little bit of heads up. I'm gonna give you a couple more pieces of heads up. We can slowly get this show on the road again. I forgot to just ask in general, how have you been holding up as of late? Like, just in general.
I've been existing.
You know what? Valid.
There's just been like with the holiday craze happening, and just everything that's going on with Rosebuds. It's all been good. Don't get me wrong. It's just absolutely. Like wow, just so much going on.
All right, D, before we really do get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a desert island on your own accords. It's just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe, get to really enjoy yourself for a little bit. With accommodations, you're not like stranded on a desert island. It's like a little personal B&B paradise away from society for a little bit. I don't want the answer to be like, give me a book on how to get off an island. No, but to make sure that you don't go completely insane on this island, you could bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with whatever kind of headspace you want on this island. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
My iPad.
Your iPad. Okay. Any particular reason why that's the first thing you think of?
Because I can turn it into a multi-useful tool where I can draw on it. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted PDF books, I can have them all on the iPad. So if I just wanted to read something, I'll come prepared with like a bunch of Garfield books, a couple of Pearls Before Swines maybe, and have them there so I can read on my iPad. So maybe download a couple movies as well. So it's a very versatile tool. So I can just use that to do all the things that I need it to do.
I like how the one piece is multiple pieces. It's very smart. It's smart. It's smart. I'll give you that one. And to be fair, you're not the first person to say iPad, and I've allowed it every single time because like you're relaxing. You're there to relax. Why would I have you stressed by thinking like, oh God, what's the one thing? What's the one thing?
Yeah, it's either that or like my 3DS or Switch.
That is also both those are also very valid answers. But regardless, your iPad, that is your answer. You're locking that in.
Yeah.
Then if that's the case, I cannot think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome everyone, I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Words are wonderful. You would look fantastic in the merch that we have at the merch shop, fourthwall.com. Link to that is in the description below. And follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and most social media platforms at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. He is a professional cartoonist whose wealth of love can be seen through the comics he has worked on, whether it be helping Eddsworld and the Lo-Fi Girl, to his own of Life of Kurami, Pen and Ink, and Rosebuds. Welcome back to the podcast, Dion Parsons, a.k.a. suprdee!
What an entrance, thank you. Glad to be back.
Look, I figured I had to top the previous entrance that I gave you in episode 1, all right? Oh, goodness. How are you doing today, D?
I'm doing great. It's been a long day, but like I'm really happy to be here.
Good, good. I am so happy to have you here as well. Like I kind of hinted at beforehand or whatnot, but like it really is an honor and a pleasure to have you back here because, like I said, you were the first official guest to have on this podcast, and looking back at where I have grown, because I recently thought about bringing you on the podcast because I have been thinking about the fact that we are about to hit 200 episodes. By the time this episode comes out, again, this is going to be episode 201. Literally 200 episodes since I have brought a guest back, which is now the record for like the longest gap between, guests coming back. so so like it's really is incredible to get a chance to sit down and chat and really get to see how much you've been able to grow in the past 4 years alone, and I really do appreciate you giving me the chance to talk to you again. It's really an honor and a pleasure. Thank you sincerely.
No, it means a lot that you even would consider it. Like, yeah, like I know like it's been a while, but like it's so cool like how both of us have continued to grow and prosper in our own projects and stuff, and have never lost sight of what we find the joy in it.
That is so beautifully worded, if I do say so. That is a wonderful way to even think about it in the first place. But before we talk about the stuff that we are both working on these days, I did want to go back just a little bit. Now, I know when I had you on for the first time, I asked you what was your origin story, and you gave the wonderful story that you've given many times over of, the fact that whenever you were young in a sundown town, correct me if I'm saying that wrong, right or wrong or whatnot, you made a comic strip that had your friend basically have his asthma act up, which is both fun but also kind of traumatizing. I can understand what that is. And I will say, I will say, like, it's good to know that that's a good, strong foundation for the artist that you are today. But what I didn't ask last time is something that I've developed since, obviously, episode 1. When did you more or less realize that, like, the cartoonist route was, like, the way you were going to go? Like, when did it go from this kind of, like, love and appreciation and a way for you to connect to others to a passion and knowing that that's your career, that's what you want to do for the rest of your life?
It was that moment.
It was that exact moment.
It was that exact moment. I almost killed a friend and said, I want to make a career out of cartoons.
I mean, again, valid. I also forgot to ask last time, have you checked up on that friend since then? They're good, right?
I have. They're okay. They're okay.
Like, granted, I would have figured that, like, if the asthma was a bit too much, you probably wouldn't share that story so fondly. I just wanted to make sure that they were cool,
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Again, that's it's good to know that, like, especially when that love started, you stayed strong with it. I mean, I can certainly see that with kind of the path that you took ever since then. I mean, obviously dedicating yourself, creating all sorts of comics. One of the things that, as I was listening back to the original episode, I cannot believe I forgot to even mention in the first place, is the fact that not only did you have the love for Garfield and stuff like that, correct me if I'm wrong, you were mentored by Jim Davis, correct?
Yes.
Which
it was such a full circle moment.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that. Like, I can only imagine for you, like, what the experience could have been like for someone that grew up loving, Garfield. Again, the lazy orange cat that, it's not like you were an orange cat yourself, like you were able to relate to that regardless. It must have been a cool full circle moment to go from, like, having that being a way to connect to people to having the guy that make that be the one to help you along your way, help you along your path.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's so bizarre to think about because, like, for me, when it comes to my relationship with Garfield and Jim Davis, it was always like, so to reclarify my relationship with Garfield, when I grew up in this sundown town, and I started reading, the Garfield comic strips and stuff. Mm-hmm. He's what helped me learn to be okay with myself. Like, he's fat, lazy, kicks Odie off the table, and ships Normal to Abu Dhabi.
Right.
Everyone wants him to change. Everyone wants him to be someone that he doesn't want to be, and he's okay with himself. And in some twisted manner, I found that inspiring.
Yeah.
This guy loved who he was, and he was okay with himself. He wasn't going to change himself for anybody. And I found that inspiring. I found that as a way to help me be okay with myself and to learn to be okay. Like, look, I'm black. I can't change that part of myself. So people have to learn to accept that part of me, whether they want to or not.
Right.
And that's kind of what helped push barriers forward for me, for people to actually accept who I was. And art became a major factor of that, because people started looking at something that was within me instead of outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So, art in Garfield has really helped tremendously in just like restructuring who I am, how I am, and how I, interact with others.
Absolutely. I mean, you were going down that the list of like kind of how Garfield is, and like everyone else kind of wants him to change or whatnot, but like he's not. He's gonna stay true to himself, which is not like a bad like. Yeah, it's funny in certain circumstances, but it's not like the worst person out there. I was gonna say like you were talking about that, and for some reason, what came to mind for me in particular was not even a strip, but rather a special. The very, in my opinion, very underrated Garfield Christmas special that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way that like in that animated short, or that the TV special, however you want to look at it or whatnot, like it's not like there's a giant character arc of like Garfield somehow turning out to be a better character. It's just like Garfield's just who he is throughout the entire thing, but it's not like he doesn't have like a lack of love for people, especially recognizing that like basically he and grandma are essentially like the same person in one form or fashion. And especially the touching moment at the end where she gets, or he gives her the photos that he found in the barn or whatnot. Like it's a good thing to it's a good reflection of that character at the end of the day. And I can understand that, like, for you again growing up in a very, I would say, unique, but I imagine a lot of people probably had a very similar circumstance to you, unfortunately. But like, growing up in that and having that kind of like affirmation, that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? That kind of a way to reaffirm that like you don't have to be scared, like just be yourself and people are gonna like love and appreciate you or whatnot. Like that's it's really cool to know. It's really cool to reminisce on that. And then, like I said, to have that be how you go forward in life, and then to eventually get to the point where you get to work along, or you get the guy that made that stuff to mentor you. Again, like aside from it being full circle, that had to be surreal. Like, what was it like even being in his presence, let alone being mentored by him?
Okay. So what I'm about to share to you, it sounds like it comes out of a Hallmark movie special.
Okay.
Right? Uh, so I'm friends with this guy named David Reddick, who at the time was working for Jim Davis at the Pause building in Muncie.
Okay.
He knew how much of he and I would talk a lot and would collaborate, talk about stuff, about comics, about life and things like that.
Right.
And he knew my story and knew how much of an influence that Garfield was to me. So he and Jim got together and ended up talking about me. And then Jim said, "Hey, invite him to Pause. I'd love to meet him." So they brought me down to Pause in December of it was December 12th. It was either December 12th or December 14th of 2014.
Okay.
And around this time, I was working on Life with Karami, like the very first iteration of it, and was getting really close to getting it published, in a few local newspapers to kickstart my cartooning career.
Right.
And so around that time is when Jim invited me to Pause. And so to give you a kind of an idea, the Pause building is just this ginormous building. Really, it's like there's a lot of glass windows because he really valued sunlight and people actually feeling like seeing the outside world, because like it's in the middle of nowhere, like it's hidden within cornfields. Like no one would be able to actually find this without proper directions to it.
Valid.
So he and David Reddick brought me out after work hours so I could spend some time with him.
Mm-hmm.
And within this building, it's just this huge building, and right next to it is a smaller building, and that's his private office area where he works and does emails and stuff like that. Me and David went to his private office, and it's just this long stretch of a hallway. Like there's a secretary desk right next to the front door, and there's just this long stretch of a hallway that just ends with his door. And opening the front door, you see the door, but it was cracked open, and there was just this glowing light coming out of it, like it was like a sunset or something. Yes, like that. And as the closer we got to that door, we just heard this chorus just get louder and louder coming out of it, louder and louder. And as soon as we opened the door, Jim was sitting at his desk, and he was watching something, and he looked over. He's like, "Oh, hey, D, don't mind me. I'm just watching this play my kid sent me. It's pretty stupid." He turned it off. And then so we started. We talked for like about an hour and a half, just about cartooning my life and just my history with Garfield. I definitely cried in front of him just because it was such an important moment for me that he would do such a thing, spend time with me and talk about comics and stuff. And I started talking about Life with Karami and what my plans were for it. And the most important thing he told me was like, this would be a perfect learning experience for you, that no matter what you do, regardless of if you work on Karami forever or work on something new, that this would take you in the direction that you need to go as a person and as an artist. And so he actually helped get it into a few of the local newspapers, as well as helped do there was like a front page article about the strip being launched in the newspapers as well. So that was just a huge mind-blowing experience for me. The craziest part of it was that one, he drew me an original Garfield, which was really cool.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
So he drew me an original Garfield, and I actually don't have it on me because it's currently out to be professionally framed.
Oh, beautiful! That is that magnifique.
But one of the most prolific things, actually, so I want to just show something real quick. So this year, this is called my Garfield Shrine. This is art from Jim and some of the other Paul's artists of art that they have done of Garfield or some of my characters. So I have them on display right here as a, this is the shrine. This is like my my house. What is the phrase called? The housewarming, the icebreaker. When people come to my place, this is the first thing that they see.
Again,
but one of the things that he did, which is surreal, I still can't believe this, because even like his team has told me, he hasn't done this for anybody before. But
let's see this. What you got?
So he drew Karami. He actually drew one of my characters. And again, it was such a sight to behold, because they have, again, they said he barely draws Garfield for anybody these days. And so when he drew one of my characters, they were like, he's never done that for anybody before. So it's, it's such a personal, I won't call it memorabilia, but it's such an important piece to me, because it showed, his legitimate faith in me and what I'm doing. And I think that's just surreal. Like, he has actually been, a part of every single main project that I've done. Like, he's either has said, hey, I'm very proud of you. I really love what you're doing with this. Here's my advice for this, that, or the other. He's done it for Karami. He's done it for Pen and Ink. He's done it for Rosebuds. It's just been like, he's been such a, core part of who I am as an artist, that it's just been so, special that this relationship that I've had with Garfield growing up has become this full circle.
I mean, that's trust me. You were almost had me to tears thinking about that kind of stuff. All right, like even think about it now. Like you said, you met him. What was it? December of 2014. So here we are, 10 years later, and the fact that that is still like a core piece of your life more than anything else. The fact that he is a core member of your life, still showing that love and support for you. Again, considering the fact that you grew up and his character was the one that was like the core piece for you. That is, if I was there, I would give you the biggest hug right now. That is what I gotta say to that. All right.
I'll save one for you when we meet up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we definitely gotta get that meetup down at this point. Oh man, like it's gotta be even surreal just thinking about the fact that he and the people at Paul's or whatnot have so much love and faith in your characters in the first place. The fact that again, Jim Davis drew one of your characters. You got people that are working there now that they'll do fun little crossover pieces or silly little things like that just for the fun of it. I cannot tell you how much I love and appreciate that, especially as someone that's got a chance to talk to so many different artists and see that kind of stuff firsthand when it comes to how this community as a whole really gets to come together to really support people, especially those that they know are going to do incredible stuff. And to be fair, I think Jim Davis was betting well, seeing what you've been able to do since you guys first met.
Oh my gosh! I'll get to I know we'll get to Rosebuds soon because I feel like that's the core conversation we're going to be having.
It's going to be a major part. Yes.
I'll say one of the things that that was so sweet. So the Ball State University last month did a screening of the Garfield movie, and Jim Davis was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to actually spend a little time with him after the film was over and after everything was said and done, to spend a little time with him to talk about Rosebuds and show him a newspaper that said, "Look, I did it!
Yes,
we did it!" He was so happy. It was he was so happy to see Rose, to see that it happened, and that that his all this love and support that he has shown me over the years, didn't go by the wayside or anything. He was just so happy and so proud. It was such a sweet moment, and I. One of the things I gave to him in person was I gave him a Rosebud strip as well as an original Life with Karami strip, and he smiled so wide. He was like, "It's so nice to see these characters again after all these years." And it was so fun.
Oh man! Again, I just want to give you the biggest hug possible now, because that is the sweetest thing I've heard. That is so. It gives me so much life, so much positivity. Oh, that is incredible to hear. I mean, goodness. Now, obviously, hearing that little story with Jim Davis does lead me to a very interesting question, though. What do you think of the movie?
It was all right.
No, that's valid. That's understandable. No,
it was an okay movie. It wasn't a good Garfield movie.
There you go. It certainly was catered for a certain audience, and that audience was not us.
I'll at least say this: the Peanuts movie was more faithful.
Yes.
The first 10, 15 minutes of that movie, of the Garfield movie, I wanted that, just the whole movie.
You know what? That's valid. That is understandable. I can totally. I mean, as like you said, it's how faithful they were in a certain period of time, but also what audience they were catering to at certain points.
I will compliment that I did like Garfield and Odie's relationship. They really played up them being brothers, and more Odie being more of an unpaid intern. I really did like his stupid on the outside was actually really helping Garfield on the inside kind of attitude. I really, really like that relationship between them. John was just a glorified cameo. You know,
Oh goodness.
there was not much Garfield to it, which is kind of sad. Uh, but I think the art, like I ended up growing on the animation of it. The animation, like
Yes.
all the slapstick and stuff, was really cartoony. I ended up growing on Garfield's character design. He looked like a bear for a long time for me, but eventually I kind of grew on it. I was like, you know what, it's okay. Odie looks a lot better in motion instead of in like promotional still frames and stuff.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I thought it was good. It was a huge letdown that they went with a farm aesthetic and didn't use the US Acres characters.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Classic.
you know,
I mean, I was gonna say, like, I actually, from what you're talking about, like the way that they were in motion, they actually looked more like their characters than like the promotional stills when they were like first being shown or whatnot. Like,
mhm.
um, but yeah, no, I mean, it was a film. It was an enjoyable one for some, and obviously, like, if you're looking for like a faithful Garfield film, watch the first 10-15 minutes. Anyways, but I mean, like. Seeing obviously that like that love for Jim Davis and like what he's been able to produce with like Garfield and stuff like that, and seeing you being able to reinterpret that into your pieces and such, showcasing that love that you had, like you talked about the first time around, how each of your properties that you've developed is based around love in one form or fashion or whatnot, and seeing how you're able to retextualize that into these incredible strips, which for those that missed out, trust me, I will have a link to that first episode in the description below so you guys can listen back in on the horrible audio that I had personally because I was trying out a new microphone at that time. Um, but no, it's cool to see that like you'd be able to recontextualize words. It's cool to see you recontextualize basically that love that you have and what the humor or whatnot into your strips, especially with what you've been able to do as of late with, just as you predicted, Rosebuds. Now, I remember whenever we had talked the last time, you had just been able to get it into like a little bit of a syndication. Like you were able to get it into some print here and there or whatnot. But first off, I just want to say before anything else, from when we talked the last time to where we are now, like I've got to say I've loved the subtle changes that you were able to make to the characters, especially like the character designs or whatnot. Like,
Mhm.
how important was it for you to continue to like work on, especially from where you were, September 2020 to here we are right now. When we're recording this is December 2024. Hate to break that wall for the people that are watching this in January. But like, how important was it for you to like continue to tinker and toy with like some of these characters and like their personalities and their appearance and such to where we are right now, so that whenever a more wide audience get a chance to see them, that they get the ones that you have these days?
It was very important. Like, in order for me to continue with Rosebuds, there was a lot of things that I personally had to look internally in within not just myself, but just like how the characters are, how are they acting and stuff, to make them stronger characters, better written characters.
Yeah.
Because there was stuff that I was doing in 2020 that were okay, here and there things were all right, but obviously there were lots of growth for improvement, both in just their designs, the writing. Especially the writing is probably like more important than the designs,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. But it was important that I try to restructure things within their characters to make things stand out more and make them more easily identifiable as characters and stuff like that. So a lot of the things that I'm doing now is because of from feedback I've gotten from close friends and people that I collaborate with. To even every once in a while I'll listen to reader feedback and hear what people have to say about the strip and like what they feel and stuff. I try not to take it too much into account, but
Right.
every once in a while I'll hear something that goes, hey, maybe I should think about that a little bit more. So once I dwelled into that, and just started refocusing on the sisters, it just made it a lot easier to tweak things and make things easier to understand and establish with them.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, like you were talking about when you were talking about like basically working around like the writing more than anything else, how that has changed in the past 4 years or whatnot. Like honestly, seeing the story beats you've been able to take with some of these characters, whether it be like the strips that last like a couple of weeks or whatnot, and like the stories how they progress day to day in that one, or like really establishing more like the backstory, why certain characters are a certain way, why certain characters love X, Y, and Z or whatnot. Like it's honestly very rewarding, but also like very heartwarming to kind of understand more of the love that you're trying to like bring forth with Rosebuds, with that the sibling love that they have. That like, yeah, there could be a time to where all Maria, there could be times where Maria could be really on Rose's nerves, like at the very last nerve or whatnot. But it's not like out of spite. It's not like they're all trying to fight just for fight of it. It's like they love a certain thing, they care about X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. Like it's really cool to see how the story has been able to progress in the 4 years alone. Like, I imagine for you, considering how hard you've been working on this kind of stuff, like I imagine for you it's gotta be really kind of rewarding knowing how far you've been able to develop these characters.
Yeah, and honestly, just as a I don't know if I mentioned it uh, in the first episode, but
Mm-hmm.
now, like, I've had these characters since I was in high school.
Right.
So, so they've at least had a good. Let me see. It was about like.
It's gotta be like what,
Mm,
10, 15 years at this point, maybe a little more than
yeah,
that.
yeah. So they've been around for quite a while. So being able to you know rework them in a much more uh, I'll say like high production type of media.
Mm-hmm.
This is really huge. So to be able to have them in this type of format and be able to refigure out some things with their character, and it's all there's going to be a lot of character course correcting and stuff, just because like
Yeah.
maybe some things work here, some things don't here. And that's kind of standard for comic strips. Some things work, some things don't, and you ultimately figure it out as you go along, because you kind of have to be forced to adapt and change with daily deadlines or weekly deadlines and stuff
Right.
like that. And just as much as the readers are learning about your characters, you are also learning about your characters. How can I? One of the most important things that Mort Walker, the creator of Beetle Bailey's, said is that, like, creating gags and stuff is like going into a pitch black closet and just grabbing stuff and just coming out with it. Sometimes you might end up grabbing the same things, but how do you repeat yourself without, you know, how do you say something different without repeating yourself, or something along that lines? Like, you're doing
Right.
the exact same thing, but how do you like how do you not repeat yourself? I guess
Yeah. It's one thing for it to have the same message, but if you're literally following everything beat for beat, that's when there's an issue and you need to figure out a way to change it. Um, I mean, like I was trying to think because there's so many like print made to print like strips or whatnot that like over time there, or at least there's a good handful of them that I can think of that like they change over time. They introduce characters in a certain way. Certain character certain things get affected because of things that are happening in the outside world or whatnot. So it's not new to know that like your characters have been evolving ever since you first contextualized this as a graphic novel that you were trying to do years ago before, correct me if I'm wrong, Life of Kurami like became like the thing that you focus on because you were able to get that to print. um
So actually,
oh,
uh, that graphic novel was actually something that I was doing before Rosebuds happened.
right.
The only reason I was doing the comic. So just to add some context to this, uh, I was in the development. I was working on. I was still. So this was like around 2017 or so. I was
Oh,
still working on pen and ink.
okay.
Still in another format. But while I was in my pen and ink era, I ultimately said I want to revisit the Rosebud sisters. Like, they originally, I don't think they were sisters. They were just friends that all hung out with each other. But
Okay.
I added context because, like, I wanted Maricela to still be along with the mix, so I
Yeah.
made them sisters, to give extra reason that this is why they all hang out together. But for that graphic novel, I was was starting to develop that as a way to bring in these characters, but I started doing comic strips as a way to get me re-familiarized with the characters, their personalities, their dynamics, kind of figure myself out with them. And then as I started doing those, I started releasing them online, and then they just started growing in popularity, and then that just became the de facto project I started working on.
I mean, it certainly didn't hurt, especially with like some of those characters or whatnot. It certainly didn't hurt that you introduced, this nice little plushie right here to go along with, some of the stuff. Right?
World famous plush Maria, yes.
World famous plush Maria. Last time it was socks. This time around, it's the plush. All right.
Yes. Oh my gosh, those things sold like crazy. I was like, oh my goodness.
No, trust me, I had to hurry up to make sure to get mine quick. Okay. I'm still waiting on the resale for the Absolute Unit T-shirts. I've been waiting to get one of those for ages at this point.
It's crazy. I actually have a button that I can press to put those on sale. For some odd reason, I just haven't pressed the button yet.
It's like you're hovering, you're teasing the audience. Like any day now, they could become the Absolute Units.
I don't know why. Like, to be completely transparent, I don't know why I haven't pressed it yet. Like, normally I use that as like a special Maria Day here. Like a Maria Day event. Like, here, you guys want a plush Maria shirt? Here's this for Maria Day, and I usually do that every year. But then I kind of, with everything that's been going on, I kind of dialed back a bit just because I was like, God, there's so much work to do, and I don't have time.
I mean, to be fair, in like subsequent years, like ever since we first talked about like the Absolute Unit T-shirt or whatnot, like you've had some incredible drops. Like you had the plushies, you had like the vinyl figure and such. Like you had some stuff that perfectly made up for a lack of a T-shirt on those Maria days. I think no one is really arguing or angry that they weren't on sale, but it'd be nice to consider it for this upcoming one.
Eventually, I'm still prototyping it, but I am working on a plush Maria. I have a much bigger one in the living room, but I've been using this as a kind of a way to figure things out. The inside is completely plush Maria as well.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's so cool too. Like it's an Eda bag actually. So like her shirt is actually a window, so you can actually put stuff in it.
Yeah.
But what's so cool is that what I've done is that the print of it has her Absolute Unit on it, and then you could actually flip it around, and there'd be another saying on it.
Oh.
So you could be able to either change it out, either get some extra inserts, and you want to put like badges and stuff on it, pins. You could do that instead. I'm still working it out to figure out how I want to handle it, but that's been kind of a prototype, and people have been asking me nonstop about it.
I mean, I imagine that demand is probably a lot more nowadays than ever was before, considering the fact that, again, from when we were talking 4 years ago to here we are right now, you've gotten Rosebuds fully into syndication when it comes to like being printed and stuff. That has to be exciting more than anything else. The fact that you finally have the opportunity to be in a not just a few local papers, like a wide range of newspapers all around the nation.
Oh my gosh! So for people listening to this or watching this, let me at least explain a little bit about what syndication is.
Right.
This is basically a cartoonist dream. Newspapers will pay you to have your comic in their newspaper, and this is how it kind of like they won't admit it, but this is how you get people to read newspapers is through the comics page.
Right.
And so with having comics in the newspaper, you get paid based on how many comics a week a newspaper will pick you up for, or how many newspapers you get picked up in. So it's kind of a various set sort of thing, and it always changes for every cartoonist. No cartoonist is the same, so it's always a different price range, a different amounts. So for like right now, Rosebuds is in Sunday newspapers, and to be honest, like that's like the one you want to be in,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
those are the big newspapers. Those are the papers most people know about when they think about comics.
Exactly.
Is the Sunday comics page. So with that, Rosebuds is now in Sunday newspapers across the country. So where Life with Cromie was just in a couple of local newspapers, Rosebuds is now nationwide. Just was recently told the Seattle Times picked it up.
There
you
you
know,
go.
some big newspapers are picking it up. Had a friend who knows the former president of National Lampoon, who has been following my journey for a while, and
Okay.
he was telling him that he saw Rosebud strip in California while he was traveling. So as you see, like there's outreach in ways that is very very big for a comic like this. And so what a syndicate does is that they will take your comic strip and, hey, this is a really good strip, you guys should consider picking this up for your newspaper.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, either they pick it up, they don't pick it up, whatever the place may be, the syndicates are basically your agents, and they will do this stuff on your behalf as a way to represent you, to get your comic into newspapers. And then whatever payment stuff is agreed to, you and the syndicate will split that 50-50.
Mhm.
So this is the dream of, I get to make comics and get paid to make comics, and someone is, I have a syndicate that is working alongside me to network it out, get it into different streams, media streams, whether online or in newspapers and things like that, to branch out the outreach of the strip. So this is a thing that cartoonists really really strive for. Like my syndicate is King Features.
Mhm.
They own Popeye, Beetle Bailey, uh, High and Lois, and a bunch of the legacy comic strips that you might know about when you think of comics.
Right, right.
Um, so there was a year-long bidding war for Rosebuds between King Features and another syndicate, and that was part of the reason why those like this year-long silence from me, because I was in the middle of all that.
Right,
And
right.
that type of moment is very very special for cartoonists, because it's one thing to have one syndicate interested in your strip. It is an unnatural thing to have two of them, and for two of them to have a bidding war over it. Uh, but had a lawyer friend that was with me, all by my side throughout the whole thing. He was such a trooper to support me throughout all this. Helped help figure out all the legal stuff on my behalf. It was really really sweet. But yeah, no, this was like this is the thing. Like just to show a comparison, like with a syndicate,
Mhm.
King Features in particular, I'll say this: they can get up to like 10,000 comic submissions a month. Uh, they may only pick two or three of those submissions to pick up, and then a year,
And
and
sorry, and for context, that's not 2 or 3 thousand. That's out of 10,000, 2 or 3 individual ones that they pick from.
yes, and they might pick one of those to get into newspaper syndication. So Rosebuds has really, blasted through a lot of improbable odds for
Right.
this.
That is insane to even think about. That like Rosebuds was not just picked, but it was desired to the point where there was a bidding war for an at that point like an independent comic strip. Like that has to be an insane thought to think about, and especially for King to be the one to like pick it up. I lit up a little bit whenever you said that like that Popeye was the one that was like one of their big ones that they have featured in there, because there's another podcast I listened to that it's and I'm gonna say it bluntly, it's called Behind the Bastards, where they talk about like just horrible people and like why they were wrong and all that kind of stuff like that. But
Uh-huh.
on their podcast, they featured the artist that is basically in charge of the Popeye comic strips these days, the ones that are continuing to be published or whatnot. On a couple episodes, like
Mhm.
featuring him talking about like the horrible like cartoonist, like a Scott Adams or something like that, you know. Like it's insane to think that like and you know, I heard Popeye, I'm like, oh my god, Small World, because I've heard that guy talk before, and the guy that does the Popeye ones seems like a really cool person. Like, I'm just gonna say that out
Mhm.
there. But like, regardless, back to what I was saying, like the fact that you are now at this point that you've probably imagined and dreamed about like wanting to have this opportunity to ever since you got into this thing. Like again, it has to be surreal to know that Rosebuds is that beloved on all different levels, and people are loving, and you're getting a new audience that's gonna love and appreciate this. That has to be surreal. It has to be out of your mind to think about it.
It honestly is because for me, this is kind of, this is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to make comics or
Mm-hmm.
make cartoons of some sort. At least when it comes to being in newspapers, I didn't really start wanting to do that until I started Life with Karami,
Right.
and that became such a life altering thing for me because I was like, oh my gosh, like for one, again, it's next to impossible to get into this. It's
It is.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's taken me 10 years to get into this. Like it takes a lot of people longer. Like it's this is like for multitude of reasons. For one, most comic strips don't die.
Yeah.
Like they go on forever. So the slots for newspapers don't really exist for newcomers to come in because comics just they don't they don't stop. Peanuts has been in reruns for almost roughly 25 years or so.
Yep.
Uh, a lot of the legacy strips right now are being helmed by either family or friends or just understudies. So like these comics, they just for the biggest reason they just don't die. So it's hard for new talent, for new people to come into this.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm currently the youngest syndicated cartoonist in the nation.
Right.
Because some of the youngest are at least in their late 30s or early 40s, and I'm in my late 20s.
Yep.
So this is a remarkable deal. And on the note of like comics and stuff, like as I was talking about, like so this newspaper that I have here has a Sunday Comics and also actually has Rosebuds in it.
There you
So
go.
actually, this is actually tomorrow's strip right here that you're seeing. This one gets it a little early, so I actually get to read before I release a link to the new where has like 3 strips in it that were made in the 21st century, and Rosebuds is one of them.
No, there you go.
So like I'm just like that's just a show of like how difficult it is for syndication to happen for comics, especially in this type of modern age where like newspapers aren't necessarily alive, but they're still going, but it's like it's really really hard to get into. Like personally, if I hadn't done this for as long as I have to pursue this, I don't know if I would have done it again. Like, I definitely probably wouldn't do it again, and I definitely wouldn't encourage other people to do it because it's so tough and it's so rough, and it's a long journey to get to it. To make something long enough, strong enough that can be consistently updated and consistently can be done in a way that you can keep up with the pressure of the deadlines, because those things are no joke.
Oh no, I obviously, because like considering the fact that this is something that is so widely distributed, the deadlines are probably very key to make sure that they have something to show at the end of the day. Um, because I remember like when we were talking last time, I remember words come back to me again because I remember like I had asked you last time how hard was it to get syndication. I remember your exact response was ha, it's really hard. Because I and honestly, like I don't blame you, especially with how newspapers are treated these days more than anything else. Like they're not as necessary, or they're not as desired as they were obviously even 10, 15 years ago. But obviously with how hard you've been working at this and how dedicated you've been to to see these characters, that is just a testament of the love and passion that you have for this art form, to again be shown to a wider audience at this point, the ideal audience that you've wanted since day one. I i cannot tell you how much I am I love and appreciate, and I'm so proud to hear you've been able to get to this point, because I can imagine for you, like thinking back to all the years of hard work you've had getting up to this point, like it's got to be both like a weight off your shoulders that you've got to this point, but also like a point of determination that like I got to keep going. Obviously, I got here. Getting here is one thing, but keeping your place is another.
Oh, the weight just got heavier.
Valid, understandable.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, no, no, the hard part just started.
Right.
But it's I knew what I was in for when getting into this, and it has been like for what this is, for the career path that this is. It's so special to me for just how much it has influenced who I am and what I've grown up to become. And I want to, like, again, I really want to help, bring in a new generation of newspaper cartoonists.
Right.
It's kind of hard to, because, again, a lot of comic strips don't die. So it makes it hard for new talent to come in and spread a new voice in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to help push into that and go, there's new people that want to come in and leave their own mark in the newspaper world, leave their legacies behind.
Right.
I know eventually I'll be in the exact same place as these people 20, 30 years from now, where it's like, yeah, God willing, newspapers live that long, that, like that there'll be a new wave of cartoonists to come in behind us to leave their marks and stuff. And I would love Rosebuds to be kind of a part of that, to help pave a leeway for younger, newer people to come in and, do their thing. It's just, to be completely transparent, it's really difficult, mostly because, younger generations aren't taught about newspaper comics. They're not taught about how to work in this stuff. I'm surprised most people know, like, how people would work in this sort of stuff, just because, it's not taught. It's so tightly gatekept. And
Yeah.
on one hand, that's fine. Like I totally get it. But on another, like, you guys are kind of cutting the ladder behind you. Like, how, like, what happens when stuff gets picked off, how are new stuff going to come in? Are we just going to keep rerunning the same strips for, infinity, and that's it? This is what the comics will be?
Right.
Like, I would love to kind of not restructure stuff, but help, pave a way for others to come in and say, hey, I could do this, I could do that, or at least start working more with these types of syndicates, especially when they're starting to look into the digital age of comics with like Webtoon and Tapas and all this stuff. Like, they're looking at them and going, okay, maybe we gotta, figure ourselves out, how do we rival these guys,
Mm-hmm.
and get, attention for comics to us. So that's where I think Rosebuds kind of leads a good hand, because Rosebuds has a pretty decent online following, and then being able to see it in newspapers as well as a newspaper strip, it's one of those things that, like, it helps. It's merging that gap between the two of, like, it's a comic strip you can read online, but it's also a newspaper strip. And then what I love to do is always kind of like share a little behind the scenes of like, this is how it, I'll take a picture of a newspaper strip or of a strip, a version of it in a newsprint, and then either scan or take a picture of it and do like a side by side comparison of here's how it looks like in newspapers and here's a high quality version of it,
Right.
that you would see online. And just to keep enticing people, like this is, kind of a cool little, technical quirk of the newspaper world with comic strips. So it's just one of those things. It's so cool. There's a lot of work behind it, but it's full of love. Like I don't regret doing any of this. And with Rosebuds becoming what it has become, it's only just the beginning of. So I'm really happy with that.
Like even thinking back to just that little statement alone, like you said, like this is just the beginning. You've only been in syndication since this past year. Like this is the first year of it in syndication, and Lord knows how much long how long you're gonna get the opportunity to keep telling these stories, because I sincerely hope you get so many opportunities to tell so many stories in this universe. I like, because obviously, like I've had a love for these characters for years at this point. Like I got to grow up with the Rosebuds, okay. but, but like seeing how much they like, how much you've been able to develop that kind of art and get the opportunity to now get like this cool new audience, like it makes me excited for what can be next, especially considering that, like you said, this is only the beginning. This is just the first taste. Like Lord knows like how it's going to be years down the line, and people are going to probably get a chance to showcase that love more and more every single day. Like I'm excited for you now that you finally got the chance to get this far. I genuinely am.
And I appreciate that. And it like, with people like you who are so appreciative and just like, what I definitely try to make sure that people know that this wasn't just a effort on my end. This has been a community effort. This isn't a just a D victory. This is our victory. You guys have helped me, in various ways, either just talking to me about my comics or supporting it through either reading it or sharing it with others. Like a this is a group effort sort of thing that we're rising this all together, and I want people to feel like they are appreciated for doing this. Like I couldn't be where I am today without the people who have supported me all these years. Like this means a lot, and personally I thank you for being so supportive and talking with me about this stuff and wanting to learn more about it from from the inside. Like that means a lot. That means so much to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, for God's sake, that's part of the reason why I started this podcast in the first place, because of incredible artists such like yourself. I love showcasing that, the inside of it, or like the love and the passion behind it, because I'm sure you can attest to this. You've probably seen so many artists, like their art being pushed out there, but like when it comes to like the behind the scenes process, or people wanting to figure out who's the artist behind it, there's not that much of a love and appreciation for it, as there probably should be, considering the fact that how much an artist such as yourself devotes themselves to this craft day in and day out. Like how much you have pushed yourself, how much you've sacrificed to have that being shown on full display. And that's why I wanted to have an artist like yourself like come on here and talk about this kind of stuff, talk about how you got to this point, talk about all the incredible opportunities to get to this point, talk about the fantastic characters as well, because like it's not like you just made you just made a random strip. Like you've put a lot of time and care into each and every single one of these characters and each and every single one of these scenarios, which leads me to ask, obviously with what you've been able to produce so far when it comes to the Rosebuds, I imagine you have to have like a favorite moment or a favorite interaction between the sisters.
So I I have a couple.
Okay.
I think my favorite one, it was a Sunday strip. This was the Sunday strip that allowed me to go, this is a comic strip. Let's have fun with it.
There you go.
It was Rosa spotted a pile of dirty dishes, and she was so angry that she just shouted so loud that she broke like 176 decibels, but it was just like there was just like this one long panel that was just like it had her shouting like, I don't care whose turn it is. Go in the kitchen and wash these dishes now. It just everything in the living room was being blown away. The TV, the couch, Maria and Marcella were just like tumbling all over the floor. It was just so many things. Like it was so hilarious to me, just like to do that. And then when Marcel just had one of those voice calibrator things. It's like shows you like how loud the thing was. She's like 176 decibels, a new record. And Maria shouts, "I can't find my ears."
That's right.
So I feel like that was a really, really fun one, just because like it allowed me to just say, this is a comic strip. Let's just legitimately have fun with this.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of the ones that I really like are it's kind of where Rosa takes center stage, and she's unintentionally asserting her dominance over the situation. Another fun one was Maria and Rosa. I mean, Rosa and Marcella were at a local community pool, and they were just like splashing around and Marcella was splashing Rosa around, just playing around, and then Rosa just does a light tap to the. She does a light splash to the water, and it's just a giant tidal wave that just like carries everyone. There's a random dolphin in the pool. And the most fun part was Brie K from Life with Cromie made a cameo in there, and she got tossed by the giant group of people there, and then Rosa just kind of dunks her head in the water in shame.
Like I gotta tell you, like when it comes to the characters, like I love each of their different quirks or whatnot, but of all the characters, Rosa's gotta be the one that I am personally just like I love and I'm scared of you in every single sense of the word. All right.
It's so fun just because like, you know, she's a character built on tragedy, but like she's trying her best. And it seemed like, you know, the world is kind of against her, and she's built herself up in a way where she doesn't want the world to hurt her, but she's unintentionally causing harm to the world in the process. But it's out of protection for herself and her sisters. The one that has Twitter in a giant storm, like a viral storm. It just reached like 1.6 million views on Instagram. Like I found out that Instagram has views and stuff. But Maria and Rosa, Maria challenged Rosa to a tug of war. And she was like, I will be the tug of war champion of the beach. And then Rosa just does like a light tug and pulls panels 5 and 6 with Maria. And then my favorite moment was like there's a giant white space in between all the pulled panels, and there's just this panel that has nothing but the beach on it. And then the next panel is just Marcel looking over while she's playing at their sandcastle.
It's like, don't mind me, just having fun, la 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 la. Like, cause when you were talking about like, you know, that first panel of like, you know, this is the time where I can have some fun. I feel like that one you just described that there is not just having fun with it, but also like just messing with like the norms of it. Because like very rarely do you have just panels just disappear more or less because of everything being taken away by it, you know?
Yeah, no, I've been playing around with structures of like with Sunday comics, you have a lot more room to play with outside of like the 3-4 panel structure of a comic strip. So I do those, but Sundays are the comic strips that get printed in newspapers. So I have a lot more wiggle room of how I want to format the panels, how I want to format the story. Rosebuds kind of like doing the Sunday allows me to be a lot more visual with it if I want to be. So that's what helps a lot with these types of strips is that, if I want to kind of goof off and do something kind of funny, I will do that. And I feel like those are some of the better ones because it's like I'm playing with the format of a Sunday strip. I do think it's always like, since I feel like Rosebuds is more, focuses more on visual humor than it does with, like writing. It so allows me to be more visual with how I present the sisters or the comic strip itself. So that's when I'm writing strips. I'm always focusing on make the writing good, make the comic good, things like that. But every once in a while, like sometimes making the writing good means screwing up with the actual comic itself. Make it something pleasant to look at, make it something fun to do. I have an upcoming Sunday strip where it's revealed that Rosa loves cane peppers, the really hot peppers, but they're like in powders. This may or may not be a parallel to reality, but she puts it on everything. I mean everything. Maria is on. She doesn't necessarily know what cane peppers are. So Rosa's kind of telling her like, the stuff is very hot. Don't touch it. It's for me. And I put this on everything. And Maria's like, I want to give a taste. So she has like this super cute face. Her tongue is sticking out. Just like a little flake of the cane pepper touches her tongue. It lights on fire, disintegrates. And she's looking at Rosa, who is pouring cane pepper in her coffee.
Sometimes you just gotta listen, Maria. You just gotta listen. Come on. Oh, goodness.
So,
fun. That I mean, it's really cool how you like. You're now getting an opportunity more or less to like bend some of the rules as well with this kind of stuff that you're talking about, and like get more opportunities to play around with like the norms of some comic strips and how they're supposed to be portrayed, like just to have some fun, to get that audience in there to love and appreciate this stuff. Like I can only imagine like the more you get to tinker with this stuff, the more people will soon, if they don't already, like recognize it and want to see more of it. I mean, I know I can imagine another way you've been able to tinker with that is not just with your own stuff, but some of the more or less client work you've been able to have over the past couple of years. Because you've had some really cool opportunities, a lot more that you've been able to have since I last talked to you. Because I remember whenever I last talked to you, you had just gotten a major opportunity to work with Toe Jam and Earl to work on some like animated strips, or work on some like strips for them. I mean, it got so far to the point to where I got, the classic. Well, it should be now classic. Toe Jam and Earl's Funky Fresh Foods of Funkatron.
Yeah. They commissioned me to do a couple of exclusive strips for the cookbook, which was so cool. What's even neater was that they had me do a lot of asset work for them. So like anytime you boot up Toe Jam and Earl back in the groove, that's my art that you see on the art on the Steam page or on the Nintendo Switch. Like that's my art that you see. They had me do a work on an animated short. I did all the asset work, but they had someone else animate over those asset work for I believe it was IGN for their major update to the game called Still in the Groove.
Yep.
And then for the 30th anniversary of the game, they had me do a lot of merchandising work for it. So like I have a really cool skateboard of Toe Jam and Earl that I got to design.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, yeah, let me grab it.
Let's see this, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, careful.
So I got this really cool Toe Jam and Earl skate. So I did a lot of asset work, and they used the assets to turn it into a bunch of merchandise, which was really cool. They did a Sega Genesis based cover of Toe Jam and Earl, so it's like a parody of the old Sega Genesis console. So I got to design that. I think there was some other cool stuff on the inside. Oh yeah, designed CD covers. for them.
God,
You
it's
know,
so like I remember when this stuff was happening, how cool it was. But like to see the physical form in your hands or whatnot, it's just so much cooler.
oh my gosh, it's so cool. I think this may sound weird, but one of my personal favorites. I got to do a T-shirt of the Hula Girls from the game,
Right.
especially particularly from level 0. So I got to design a full shirt with them that says like Aloha on it. So which was really fun to do. Uh, but yeah, so like with them that's been kind of. And anytime like there's anything ToeJam and Earl related, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, we want to do this or that. Are you up for it?" So I think that's they they have been Nap and Mr. Greg have been just like incredibly cool people, like to work with and talk to and be friends with. Like they have been such sweethearts, like
Oh,
really some of the coolest stuff.
because I remember whenever like this was first happening, or whenever I had you on last time, like you had just gotten the opportunity. Like it was just like first couple of strips you got a chance. I remember even whenever I asked you about it, you had said, "Oh, I've been waiting to talk about this," and now and now here you are years later, and you've got to do so much for them. I'm also curious: did like the opportunities with ToeJam and Earl, did it lead to like more opportunities with illustration, namely with like Sega? Because I saw you had a couple opportunities with Sega to work on some illustration
Yeah,
for them.
yeah. No, in fact, they reached out to them asking for me, which was really cool.
Oh, that's insane.
So they were like, "Hey, we like what you guys are doing. Who's the artist that you're working with?" So they reached out to them and reached out to me and said, "Hey, we love what you're doing. We'd love to collaborate with you." So I got to work with them on a couple of stuff. One of my the favorite thing was they were like, "Hey, what is your favorite Sega IP?" And I said, "Billy Hatcher. I love Billy Hatcher." So they said, "Okay, cool. We want you to make an illustration of Billy Hatcher." And I got to work with Sonic Team with that illustration. So I got like a lot of insightful feedback from like, here's this, here's that. They sent me a bunch, and I mean a bunch of art that probably has not seen the light of day. Like, oh my gosh. That was like, it was such a cool project to do.
Yeah.
There was another project. I'll share it with you later because I don't know if it's happening,
Oh.
but it was in early development, and we were working on getting stuff together. But then some internal stuff with Sega happened, and then kind of just fell to the wayside. So hopefully the project gets picked back up. I was really excited for this, but as of right now, it's kind of in the back burner. But hopefully they'll say, "Hey, we'd love to revisit this." But I'll tell you more about it later because oh my gosh, you'll flip when you hear this.
Oh no, trust me, you're teasing me, but I also want to make sure that you're able to keep a job past this interview, okay? I mean, just having those opportunities to work on those IPs alone, considering the fact that you yourself were a gamer like growing up, and that was getting the chance to work on stuff like that, like that had to be surreal. That has to be really cool.
Yeah. I think it's cool too because like a lot of people know me through my comic strips,
right?
So a lot of the projects that I do are usually comic strip based, which is I think is really cool because they honestly give me a lot of freedom with that, where they're like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. We want you to work on a comic strip with us, with our characters." They give me a lot of freedom, which I think is really neat. So like, normally I'll pitch an idea and I'll go, "We like this. Let's go ahead and just let's go ahead and do that," and then we'll go from there. Or if they have feedback, I'm like, we change this or change that, maybe it's like light wording or something like that, they'll rework that and stuff. But that's they allow me to do my thing, which I think is so cool when I get to work with these people because they come in already knowing who I am and what I'm doing, and they just allow me to do that thing.
It's insane.
And I think that's an opportunity that not too many people, especially in comics, get to do, where they just like they get that type of trust and build of like, because usually when people reach out to me, it's usually for a specific thing, which is usually comics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that people have kind of seen me as the comic guy to reach out to for this stuff, because it's, that's what I do. And I feel like it's a fun way to not only market what you're doing, but also just like shows a little extra personality in whatever you're trying to do. So whenever people reach out to me, it's like they're coming to me specifically for a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, usually what they see is what they get. So I usually, by saying, hey, let me do what I got to do to let you do what you have to do. So like, and good majority of the time, they just let me do my own thing. I'll share with them, hey, here's my ideas and stuff. They go, hey, we like this. Maybe we can update this or edit this or something like that. It's usually very small changes and things like that. But overall, they kind of just let me do my own thing. And they're happy, I'm happy. So it's really fun relationships when I get to work with people.
It sounds like a very like fun and rewarding relationship with these clients that you have more than anything else. I mean, like, especially with the ones that we talked about so far, like just getting an opportunity to mess around with these characters that you've known and loved and like had good times with. It's also unique whenever you get a chance to be a little creative with ones that, you might not think much of. Mainly, how did you get the opportunity to be the comic person for Lo-Fi Girl?
Mutual interest.
Okay.
Honestly. It was one of those moments where like, and I feel like that's like one of the most unique clients I've gotten to work with, because they're very Ghibli inspired. They're very anime inspired. They're inspired by a lot of very detailed atmospheric stuff like that. Whereas I'm over here being inspired by Garfield and gag comic strips and stuff. But it's that mishmash that makes it work so well, because we actually got to see Lo-Fi Girl in a different way that hasn't been seen before. For one, she spoke in the comics, which she doesn't do in the main channel often, if at all. So that was a fun little aspect to see, just how much of a dork she kind of is, like, because it was fun playing around with her, just due to you got to see a little more of her personality,
right.
See just kind of the kind of character she is and what she really does with herself, and as alongside that, it adds just a bit more depth to the world of lo-fi, just because of that uniqueness behind her. I won't say that she didn't have a personality, but this allowed her to have a little bit more in a more bite-sized way that people can read and associate with and support. And it's also fun when it gets to tie into the actual lo-fi channel, because there was one time where their stream ended, and it was one of those you saw how long the stream went on for. It was I don't know, 2 years or something, 2 years straight that the stream went on, and it had the actual number at the bottom right of it. So I turned that into a strip where she was she was studying, and she was I'm about to take a break. I wonder how long I was studying for. And she had a timer on. It had that exact time on it. And she was froze in place. Oh, I've been studying for 2 years straight. Uh-oh.
I mean, at that pace, with how long she's been studying, hopefully she's a rocket scientist at this point,
And I thought it was so cool, too, is that actually ended up having me lead an actual cartoon for them.
Okay.
We actually animated. I got to round up a small team, and we actually reanimated the first Lo-Fi Girl strip I did, where she was studying and kind of in her paper, and then the cat was the Lo-Fi cat was peeking around, and then kind of comes up to her and just lays in front of her, lays on top of her study book, And it was really cute. So I got to do a lot of these strips and stuff, and then to promote Synth Boy for their new side channel, or the new radio that they were doing, I got to do a couple strips with him that shows dude's just a giant weeb. And it was really fun to play with these characters, because again, like it was such an uncommon thing, and it was such an unusual style.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a mix match between, you know, my cartoony style and trying to bridge their more Ghibli inspired style, and kind of rework it in a way that kind of, you know, brings them both together. But people loved reading them, and I loved doing them. So,
trust me, I'll tell you right now, I've enjoyed seeing them whenever you get the opportunity to work on them. Like the one you were talking about with like the 2-year stream or whatnot. I remember whenever I first saw that, because it was again, it's a good way that you get a chance to basically be yourself while messing around with some of these cool characters, and having just a little bit of fun with that kind of stuff. Because like I know, like for me, I can always tell whenever I see a suprdee strip. Not just by the like the art style, but also like the kind of humor that goes into it or whatnot. Which is why it was so cool whenever I saw that you had the opportunity not just to work with like Lo-Fi Girl, but also Eddsworld, which was like really surprising to see. How did that opportunity come to you, if I may ask?
yeah, so I actually reached out to them,
Okay,
because I was a big Eddsworld fan. I really, you know, grew up watching Eddsworld on Newgrounds and YouTube. Especially on the Eddsworld website, I loved going on there and just like watching this stuff, and, you know, seeing the stuff that was going on in high school. And so, you know, I saw that they were doing comic strips and stuff, and I was like, hey, you know, I'd love to work with you guys on some comic strips and stuff. They're like, oh, dude, our team knows who you are. We would love to work with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? So I got to get really quickly acquainted with their team and got to work on a lot of really cool strips with them. As things got busier for me, I became more of a draftsman, where I would draft strip ideas, and then have one of the other team members, you know, take it on if they wanted to or not. I got to also, you know, partake in a couple of the eddisodes where I, you know, either did a little illustration or something, and they put it in the edisode, which was really cool. I love, my favorite thing that I have done was I got to design 2 Eddsworld posters.
yeah.
I got to draft out merch ideas and stuff for them. The first one was for Red October, when they did that Tord charity thing that was like all about Tord. So we have Tord exclusive merchandise. So I got to this. You actually can see it in the camera.
I've been noticing it this entire time.
that poster I got to design, where it has all of them as zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And I had even added a reference to Toaster Brains, the comic collection Ed did way back when, with Tom's head has like a toaster in it with a burnt piece of bread on it. And the other one was the Space Face poster. Like, I feel like that poster was, you know, really significant just due to the impact behind the episode. Like, that it had to be turned into a 2-parter because Ed passed away, right, you know, working on the first part. So being able to make a poster based around, you know, such a legacy of an episode under him, you know, it was, you know, such a high honor. And I feel like those 2 things are just like some of the coolest stuff I've got to do for them.
I mean, to be fair, I completely get that. I mean, you have that one up on your wall. If that's not a testament to like how cool some of the opportunities you got to have, especially for something that, like you had said, like you grew up watching Eddsworld, so I can only imagine, like, you know, just like with everything else that they've kind of had a hand to talk. Wow, I just completely lost all the words I just said right there. No, from all these different opportunities that you've been able to have a hand in, knowing how much of an impact that a lot of them is, like, you grew up, or you at one point in your life, like, you consumed and you enjoyed a lot of this stuff, and now here you are getting the chance to play in their playground a little bit and have a little fun and be a part of that legacy in one form or fashion. Like, it's so, I know I've said this a million different times at this point, take a shot every single time I said this, but it has to be surreal to think you even get these opportunities in the first place.
It is, and it's a legitimate chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you know, it's kind of like they're also watching me.
Yep.
You know, like I may not notice it, but they're also watching me. So whenever our paths cross, there's already a sense of familiarity. Like I have followed X, Y, and Z. Like I know what you guys are about, and they go, we see what you're doing. We see the things that you are doing with X, Y, and Z. So like it's a good pair that you understand what we're doing, we understand what you're doing, and we kind of want to figure out how to blend them together to make something fun. So when I get to work with these people, like it's like there's already a mutual respect and relationship of like, I like you, you like me, let's do something, you know. I think that's what, like, for me as a person and as a cartoonist, that's what really strengthens me to keep moving forward and doing and quite frankly, you know, being a part of this sort of stuff, because like, you know, again, this is a thing that we do together. Like this, like we're making all this stuff to bring joy to people, to bring happiness to people. In any way that I can continue to do that, I'm, you know, always happy to be a part of that, because that is just continuing me to be able to go, you know, I got to do this stuff. I'm more than happy to do this with you, you know, because like it's just a paper trail of things that I've been able to be a part of. But what's so cool about it is that most of the time that stuff doesn't even matter. They go, we like Rosebuds.
Yeah.
We like Aiden. You know, we like what you're doing with this stuff. So work with us because of this stuff, you know?
Well, I was going to say, like with all the stuff that we're talking about, that like leading up to it or whatnot, like, or all these other ones, like I love how they're also turning around and be like, we love Rosebuds, we love these characters, because I think the perfect blend of both client and personal work has to be your collaborations with Scott DeWaz. I mean,
yeah, no, oh my gosh, and I can't believe it's been 5 years since the first time I did that with him.
Right?
Like it was a bargain bin Christmas. When I got to work with him, and I feel like that was so cool. It's so cool too because Plush Maria actually cameoed in that episode too.
I remember seeing that. Like
so it was a fun. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I can only imagine. Like, I was just gonna reiterate more than anything else. Like, that has to be cool, especially for someone like him with the hard work that he's put into his stuff or whatnot. The fact that he sees and loves and recognizes your work and wanted you to be a part of that little unique realm of possibilities right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was so fun to keep that quiet, and then and have people freak out. Like, is that Plush Maria? Scott the it was such a treat to see that. And then he's had me on at least like every year. He's had me be a part of something else.
Right.
When the big charity bonanza happened with the return of the crypto, the return of the crypticism thing, he had a really neat art book, like an art book that was for both the Sega games and the Super Nintendo games.
Right.
And so originally, I was actually supposed to do a short comic book for him, for those books, but ended up getting COVID and, you know, had to dial back a lot of stuff. And to be honest, I don't think I've fully recovered from that. But what I ended up doing was ended up making comic strips, and they were based on like his Hey All Scott Here intros for a couple of his episodes. And what was so cool was that when you get the book, it's the front page.
Right.
When you open it, it's the front page one. So I thought that was a really cool way to introduce this whole book by having, you know, his introduction be the comic strips that I've done for him. When I thought that was, you know, such a neat treat. And since I did a couple of them, he had a couple of them in the Sega book, and then the other ones in the Super Nintendo book. So whatever one you got, you know, you got a special version of it. So I thought that was a really neat a really neat treat that he did.
It really is awesome, like especially seeing like the multiple times you've been able to collaborate with him, all the different clients and collaborations. I was gonna say, like, it's ironic that, like, I was thinking about it, and I think I saw this on your page or whatnot, but like on top of the bargain bin one, you were able to be there for his 200th episode, and here you are in episode 201 of this podcast. So I mean, like, you just need to figure out how to appear on episode 202 of something else, and you know, you can just keep the lineage going.
Well, I guess that would help with the 2 and suprdee too, I guess, you know? suprdee 200.
Well, honestly, yes. Yes, indeed. That's why I decided to bring you back after 200 episodes. What was I going to say? No, like, it's really cool to see all these different clients that you've even been able to have a chance to tinker in their world for a little bit. It does leave me curious, though. Like, more than anything else, because you've had a chance to work with a lot of cool IPs and a lot of cool people. There's got to be like a dream one, or there's got to be one that, like, if they had approached you, be like, we love what you do, we want you to make a strip based on like our X property or whatnot. There's got to be a one out there that, like, if given the opportunity, you'd love to just have a go at it, just to say you've done it.
I mean, do I have to say it? Really?
I mean, it would be appreciated.
I mean, I feel like we know what the answer would be here.
Okay.
But of course it would be Garfield.
Yep.
Like, I ended up. I don't remember if I spoke of this in the previous episode, but for Garfield's 40th anniversary, there was a bunch of Jim Davis brought in a bunch of artists to add fan art into the book to show appreciation for Garfield's 40th. So when I got to meet him back in 2017, this was during my pen and ink era. Mm-hmm. We were talking about it, and I actually had made some art and that he personally wanted to add into the book. But what was so cute about it was during this era of pen and ink, I made it as if pen and ink were the artists of all the stuff that were done with them.
Right.
So made it look like it was an autobiography made by pen and ink. You know, like these were the characters. They were the artists. They were the ones representing themselves. I did that for a while until I realized that's really ridiculous. I shouldn't be doing that. But at that time, which was so cute, we said, "Hey, let's make this under pen and ink. Like let's label it on their full names and stuff." And he was like, "I love that idea. Let's do it." So in the fan art book, you won't see my name under it. You'll see like Penny Ewart, because that's Pen's full name under the fan art section for the Garfield art that was placed into it.
Right.
So, well, I think that I thought it was such a cute moment, just like that little relationship between the two.
I love that, and more than anything else, was what you were saying as well. Like, if you had an opportunity to make like something like that, like it's already a full circle moment as is to have something of your own art, like in something official like that 40th anniversary thing. But like to just go forth and make it just even more official, more of a full circle moment, like that would be just like the ultimate cherry on top of this very wonderful and very unique like art journey that you've been able to have, not just within the past 4 years since we've talked, but like well beforehand, in the 10, 15, 20 some odd years that you've been really devoting yourself to this. Like, thinking back to your art journey as a whole, does it surprise you more or less how far you've been able to develop as an artist?
I mean, yeah, of course, it's a little scary. Like,
valid.
Because this is all I've done. This is, This is the thing I've been most passionate about. This is what I've devoted sleepless nights to, where I've devoted so much fear and anxiety and stress that I wouldn't, if I didn't do this, I don't know what I would do. Like, I've put so much of myself into this that there is no option B. This is it. This is what I've done. And it's scary to think about every day. Like, it could be taken from me the very next day, the very next minute, the very next second. And for every moment of those, I'm very grateful for it, because, stuff like this doesn't just happen to anybody. This is a very, very privileged, career path, and I'm very grateful and blessed that I have people not only in my corner to support me, but also encourage me and even support this in such a way that is very, very, it's very unreal. Like, this is an incredible career path that, it's fun. Like, it's been really, really validating and rewarding to see, like, people who have known me since Life with Crummy, or even known me since I was in high school, who have been following me on this journey. Like, I have teachers that still follow me, and it's like, he would always draw in my class and would talk about comics and stuff. And to see him now, I can open up a newspaper and see his art in the newspaper. Like, that's it's one of those journeys that, like, it's a sight to behold, because you got to be there from the get-go to see it actually happen.
Right.
And, stories like that don't always happen the way that you think they do, because it's like, usually what's these sort of things happen, it's like, they go to college, they network with people, then they get a job, and they usually have to be required to have like 3 to 5 years of some sort of professional business stuff. With cartooning like this, you don't need that. You just need to have a good idea, a good work ethic, good characters, and lots of resilience. Because again, like, this is like one of the hardest career paths to get into as an artist.
Absolutely.
Genuinely next to impossible. So for me to be in this, to be able to say I am a syndicated newspaper cartoonist, not many people can say that. Not many people my age can say that. So that is something that needs to be very, for me, that, it's a badge of honor for me, but it's also something that I really need to take extra special care of, because this is something that, again, just could be gone in a minute. And, I really want to take this and go as far as I can with it for the people that have supported me for so long. I don't want them to feel like their support, their encouragement, their years of encouraging me to do this has gone to waste.
Right. I mean, I completely understand that mentality that you're coming from, but I can honestly say at this point, like, no matter what does happen next or whatnot, like, I feel like for the people that have loved and supported you for years, like, that love and support isn't going to go away in an instant. Like, whatever may happen next, I'm hoping obviously nothing for the best, because for God's sakes, with how much you've dedicated to this thing, like, I wouldn't want anything but the best for you. But like, if something was to happen and it's gone in an instant or whatnot, like, I feel like there's still that good love and support that you've had from the people that have loved and supported you for years to want to make sure that you, even if you have a down moment, you're back on your feet and you're able to continue to survive and thrive throughout. Because we all love and recognize and see where you've been able to come so far. And I feel like for this next question, if I may, let's take the doubt away from it a little bit, because I want to give you, D, the dream scenario. Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come to you and I'm like, look, D, we've obviously seen what you've been able to do. We read the Sunday papers. We got you covered. But on top of all that, like, we see just the phenomenal amount of work that you've been able to put forth, and we know there is something there. We know that there's something more there for you. You just need an extra push, a little extra platform to get you to that next point. We have access to everyone and anyone in whatever industry possible, and more money than there should be possible. We really should be compensating the animators at this point, still trying to make sure they get a decent contract, all stuff like that. # same with animation. But right now we're focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream suprdee project?
Well, I'm working on it right now.
Oh.
This is the dream project. I'm working on a Sunday comic strip. I'm working on a comic strip for newspapers. Like, this is the dream. Like, I've accomplished that dream. Everything else is just extra goods, you know? Like, like not to be sappy about that, but like I've worked hard to get to this part with not a lot of money, mind you.
Yep.
So I don't know what extra money's going to do for me. I will say though, if I can use that money, I have been developing some stuff with both Rosebuds and Pen and Ink. What I would like to do, you probably have already seen, bits and pieces of this, but what I want to do is properly adapt a lot of the comic strips for animation.
Okay.
So I want to take some of the, and I've already been kind of doing it on my own as it is. Like, been kind of, doing some either light animating or kind of animatic. I guess detail animatics would be the better term for it. Right. But I want to take some of the comic strips and just adapt them for animation. Like, do either vertical format for TikTok and YouTube Shorts or whatever, and then do those as the dailies. So the 4-panel strips get to be vertical formatted as they are a daily strip, and have those released on those platforms, and then do the Sunday versions, the bigger format ones, under as actual minute long, 2.5 minute, or whatever long that needs to be for those shorts, and put it on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, as a means, just it reaches another audience who might be interested in Rosebuds. Not a lot of people like to read, so it makes it hard to support Rosebuds in a way that is necessary. So to put the characters into another format and just here, this is the comic strip, just an animation format. Yeah. That'll get people to still be invested in the strip, but now just, in an animated format. So I would do that.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up those little animatic animation kind of things or whatnot, because if I remember correctly, I believe someone that helped you out with that, if I'm not mistaken, is an artist by the name of Openok, correct?
Yes, Mark. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love Mark. I just he is my rock in all of this. You're gonna probably listen to this dude. Just know, in voice, I adore you. I adore what you stand for. I adore who you are as a person. He and I have been doing some crazy stuff behind the scenes as well, with Pen and Ink in particular. So I'll have to share that stuff with you after this. But he has done so much with me, and it's such a joy to be able to work with him and talk with him and collaborate with him. Just because his philosophy as a person and as an artist, it easily aligns with mine. So it makes it so easy to connect with him and just talk about life, talk about comics, talk about how can we improve ourselves as people, and how can we get to the next level of what we got to do with ourselves. So being able to just work with him and say, hey, I have a crazy idea. What do you think of this? And he goes, I'm in.
There you go. Sorry, you go ahead.
I just can't sing his praises enough, just because he has done so much for me. He has done so much with me, and absolutely anything that I can do. I usually try to have him beside me to keep things in check, because I like to. With me being ADHD, I'm very squirrel brained. So I kind of go left and right with everything, but he kind of helps keep things in check. Hey, let's dial it back a bit, kind of let's see what's in front of us right now and see what we got to do, or that, it's just, he's an incredible friend, and I consider him a brother. He's so cool. And just everything that he's doing, I just, I can't speak enough about him. And I did watch his episode, and knowing that you guys talked about me a little bit, I just was just so flustered, because it was just so sweet that you guys saying nice things about me. So it is my turn to return the favor. Just I adore this guy. Everyone needs to adore this guy. Absolutely. He's so intelligent, just knows what to do, what he stands for, and does not back down on his values. So I just, that's my It's my little ramble of him. Just I could talk about him for hours just because
I can tell.
It's just like he has for the past several years he has been such a close associate to everything that I'm doing. He's usually one of the first people I share anything major with because I'd love to get his thoughts and his insight and just like, is this a good thing to do? Is this a wrong thing to do? What are your thoughts? And he gives me his thoughts, and usually that I try not to do anything without hearing him out first. So
I mean, like, to be fair, I was gonna the part of the reason I wanted to make sure to bring him up is to partially thank you, because if it wasn't for that first conversation with you years ago, like he was one of the first people that supported this podcast in the first place and like tried to spread the word about it as best as he can. So if it wasn't for you, like I wouldn't have had a chance to know him and get to recognize just how cool of a person he is, especially whenever I was able to get him on the podcast to talk about his art and stuff like that. Like I again, I just want to say thank you for even helping me make that connection in the first place. It's been really cool to have his support, both for this podcast, but also to hear, especially how much of a support system he is for you. That's really incredible to hear, and I'm so happy for that because more people need to recognize how cool of a person he is, like genuinely.
No, I will sing his praises to the sun. He is a very, very valuable person that anyone would be so grateful to have in their life.
Absolutely. But sadly, we need to get down from the dream scenario that we were talking about earlier. We need to get back to reality, and I'll ask the ever so generic question. Where do you hope to see yourself in, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
In 5 to 10 years, my hope is that Rosebuds would be in a lot of newspapers. Yeah. That I will be doing this in a sense of just like, this is the only thing that I get to focus on. Like, I'm just doing this. I'm doing Rosebuds and developing. Definitely developing, pen and ink in particular. I really feel like pen and ink has always been in this situation where it's always getting the short end of the stick of just terms of just like development and stuff. Like, it feels like every time I'm just about to do something with them, something else happens. Like, I kind of got to put them on the back burner for a little bit. I feel like they haven't really reached their full potential yet in terms of just like having their outbreak story. So I really want to get to a point where pen and ink have their time to shine and actually are doing something that brings them into the forefront, like Rosebuds. Luckily, right now, pen and ink is now a published comic strip series in a few local magazines. So I'm now making pen and ink comic strips. It took years for me to be even okay with doing that because I always thought about them being graphic novel characters. But at this point in time, I'm like, it's better for people to get awareness of them than there being no awareness. So while I'm not updating their strip as frequently as Rosebuds, I'm doing it enough to keep them in at least public conscience. So this is at least a good chance for them to actually start, people be more familiar with them and doing more things with them, because I feel like there's a lot of creative potential for them that just hasn't had the chance to blossom yet. And so I'm really hoping that when they get their legitimate chance to do something major, that will really, change their trajectory, as well as with Rosebuds, where, I want to do more with Rosebuds. I want it to be in a lot of newspapers. I would love to talk about doing, bigger scale Rosebud animations where I just adapt the strips and just, release them as online and stuff like that. Just adapt the strips for people that would like the characters but don't read the strip. Right. Just adapt them for animation. Hopefully that there's talks of something even bigger than that. I like to do things a little small scale just to keep things kind of independent as possible.
Right.
And then, because like while Rosebuds is under a syndicate, I still maintain control over the strip and what can be done with it. So I want to be able to maintain certain things with it and kind of keep its presence both online and in newspapers in a way where, these characters can work in various mediums.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to make them into animations or graphic novels or what have you, want to just adapt them when necessary to those formats. So right now it's just, keep working on the strip, get in more newspapers, get more people to subscribe to the strip online. And then as time goes on, start adapting animations for online for people to watch and to support. I already have voice actresses for all three sisters, and they've been such a delight to work with, and each one of them has like I've already have a ton of audio recorded of strips. They just now need to be animated and properly formatted and stuff. So it's just time on my hands in particular to just be able to either do it or hire people to help work on those.
Right.
So that's just been, one of those setbacks. But yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to do, at least in the next 5 years or so. Like, I want to be able to expand them into other mediums, but I want to make sure and emphasize that the comic strip is the most important aspect to them. Like, without the comic strip, nothing else would matter.
Yeah.
So this is, I want to keep, that the comic strip keeps updating, that people will keep reading it, people will continue to support it and follow it along and things like that. And then add alongside other things that they can support and stuff.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, like, whenever you were talking about like the pen and ink aspect of it alone, like that's the one strip of yours that I absolutely love, and I want to see more of that world that you've more or less developed for it, because it looks so much fun and unique there. But like, just get an opportunity to do more of what you're able to do now, just what you love and put a lot of time and passion into, like, that's all anyone could really ask for. That's all anyone could really hope for. And like, again, 5-10 years. And honestly, if you get a chance to do that kind of stuff, that would be phenomenal, because I know it's going to be great every single step of the way.
Yeah. Especially with like, why, as I said, with how I like to keep things small scale for the time being, because you and I both know how the pearly gates in California are right now.
Yep.
I kind of at the moment I kind of want to take a step back from that and like, maybe in the future when you guys get your acts together, right now. But if I can maintain control over this stuff and be able to just move forward with it, that'd be good for me.
I'll say that. I mean, honestly, it's a good mentality to have, like, especially short term, and especially with how chaotic everything else can seem right now. Just having that mentality to do more of what you love, that would be really great to see, genuinely.
Mm-hmm. No, I would love that, and I hope other people would love that too.
I don't think any of us are going to complain. As we start to wind down the interview, I have one last question for you. I've already asked this from you the last episode, but the last time that I had a chance to talk with you. But I'm wondering how similar or how much has changed in the 4 years since we've had to talk. Obviously, you're deeply invested in art at this point. Like you said, like, this has been a major part for you ever since you were a kid, making a kid laugh so hard his asthma act up, and that being like the catalyst for for the artist that you are today. How important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
I mean, without it, like, none of us would be here right now, if I'm being legitimately honest, because like it is it's a pathway to who you are as a person. It's a way to see you internally, how you perceive the world, how you interpret the world, I know that it's kind of the same thing, but like, it's a way to see a different side of things and to tell stories in a way that makes sense to you and to other people. The way I tell stories are very simple, but it's that sense of comfort and relatability that comes out of them that what people connect with. And so, like, without that sense of connection, like it's really, really hard to kind of move forward with stuff. This is how we make relationships, how we actually develop as people. This is how we grow up to find the things that make us who we are. Like, again, you know, I can't imagine a world without Garfield in it. I don't know what kind of person I would be today if I didn't learn the valuable lessons I've learned from him. So, it's one of those things like we can't live without it.
Absolutely. That is wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. Dee, that is all the questions that I have for you. I've already showered you with Lord knows how much praise up to this point, but I want to shower you with a little bit more because it's my podcast. I do what I want. Look, Dee, I know I've emphasized this many times over, but like ever since you were on this podcast, episode 1, it was an absolute honor and a pleasure to even have you. And like I said, you were honestly one of the matches that really lit this fire under me to really go forth and go down this path. Just because I see how much art has really affected you positively. Like hearing how you were back then to hearing how you are right now. The opportunities you've been able to get, the hard work that you've put into this stuff, that you've dedicated basically your entire life to get to this point, and to see that you've not only got it, but like you're able to do that and survive and thrive doing so many incredible things. Like I can't help but love and appreciate your journey, not just in the past 4 years since we talked, but since you started on this art journey. To hear the incredible opportunities that you've been able to have, some which may be 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, to get a chance to be mentored by the one person that helped them like when they were growing up, to continue to do the hard work, working with so many incredible people that are so open and willing to let you like have a little fun in their world, to really developing your own stuff and really getting it to the point to where you're able to present something and people are going to love and appreciate it and want to give you the biggest hug possible for thanking you for providing this incredible quality stuff. Like it was an honor then, and it is an honor now to consider you a friend, more than anything else, because I know that with everything that you've been able to put your heart and soul into with this kind of stuff, I'm gonna love every single little piece of it. And I cannot thank you enough, not just for taking the time back then to sit down and chat, but taking the time now to sit down and chat and really open yourself up a little bit more than you had beforehand. Not that you didn't open yourself up beforehand. It was wonderful. Again, it was wonderful back in September of 2020 when we first recorded this thing, but to open up a little bit more now and get more of the incredible stuff that you got a chance to do it. Like I already said this a million times before, and I'll say it again. If I ever get the opportunity to see you in person, I'm going to give you the biggest hug possible, because you are one of the sweetest, most genuine, most fantastic people I've had a chance to talk to, and I will forever remember this conversation like I forever remember our first conversation. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Dee, for all you do. Keep up the incredible work, because you absolutely deserve it.
The honor is legitimately all mine. It really means a lot. Like, as comics are important to me, this podcast is important to you, and it's so cool that you allow people to come in here and not only allow them to express a bit of vulnerability to themselves in a place that, quite frankly, they don't often get a chance to. Like that's really, really cool, and it's so admirable, and I really appreciate what you're doing for the art world, quite frankly. Like, this is something that needs to be done more of, where people get together and talk about stuff like this. Like, this is very, very important stuff, and you are doing a very, very important thing. And on behalf of all artists that you have talked to the past 200 episodes, thank you.
That it's still surreal to me to think that I've gotten to this point, but like, I wouldn't be able to do it with artists such as yourself. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that compliment, and thank you for that thought. I mean, at this point, we could go back and forth just saying thank you to each other until the end of time at this point, just with how much that we each love and appreciate. But I'll put it like this: thank you, and you're welcome.
I do have one more thing I want to say that I failed to mention earlier before.
Oh.
When it came to that Sundown Town, A couple years ago, uh, the library there reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want you to do a presentation here at our library,
Right.
and we want to do a front page article about you." And they had me come down to that town, and so many people showed up to the library, and I was telling them my story about when I was living there, and quite frankly, just like on behalf of them, they all apologized for what I'd been through and how proud they were of me. And what made that so significant to me was that the mayor at the time, who my family was in close relationships with, he showed up. And he came and was like, "I'm so proud of the person you've become and so proud of what you're doing." And yeah, I cried because he was best friends with my dad. He passed away in 2006, and he was like really close friends with him. He had a we lived nearby a ice cream shop that he owned, and he would allow me and my little sister to come visit and get free ice cream anytime we wanted. And it was so sweet. But it was like that moment was such a full circle thing, because like I had a lot of people when I was living there, kind of telling me like, "You won't become this. You won't become this. You will just be X, Y, and Z. You'll kind of rot away somewhere and stuff." So to be able to come back and prove them wrong, and also get like I've never, when it comes to them, I never like held a grudge. I've never like felt negative about it, but it was an important learning experience for me to be who I am today. So for them to for the people to have to come back and say, "We would love for you to come back to our town and do a little presentation for our kids." Like that was so sweet. And their kids loved it. They were like, "Every year our kids are asking about you. We'd love for you to come back." And it's just been, it's one of those things like that story has come full circle as well, where I was rejected growing up from who I was. They're now legitimately embracing me. I think that like that is so cool, and I think that's so sweet. And I just like, with when it comes to this stuff, that like I want to show like this is a journey for all of us that we take on, and what we do, what we influence what we're influenced by are important for who we are as a person. So this is just one of those growth things that I just think that is very, very important.
I think if that is probably one of the best full circle moments I think you've talked about. Like, since I've had a chance to talk with you, that is really cool to hear, and I'm really glad to hear that. Despite all the trials and tribulations you've had to this point, here you are standing tall with all that stuff, and people are loving and embracing it, and are rooting for you, wanting to see more from you. I mean,
you can actually see this frame over here is actually the newspaper that they did.
Okay.
Front page newspaper. Then they had a bunch of people sign it, and it was so sweet. Like they gifted it to me as like they were like, "We do appreciate you and what you're doing," and it's like it really meant a lot.
Thank you for sharing that. That is an incredible story to, I guess, put a nice little bow on the story so far of suprdee, right?
Well, there's one more thing, if you're okay with it.
Go for it, obviously.
This one will be the full circle thing. Oh. So as I've mentioned, like, Jim Davis, he has drawn Karami for me. He's also drawn pen and ink for me. It's still on the shrine.
Yep.
So to have this special little thing here, this was done by his artist Gary Barker.
Yeah,
but it's the Rosebuds Sisters with Garfield and Friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because if I remember correctly, that's like your banner on at least Blue Sky, if I remember correctly, right?
It's at least my Twitter banner.
Like, there you go. But
this is one of the most important. Like, all of them are important. Don't get me wrong, but that's like with Rosebuds. it is since Garfield got syndicated in 1978,
Right.
Rosebuds is the third syndicated strip to be syndicated in Indiana since Garfield.
Oh, wow.
So there was two other strips ahead of me, but Rosebuds is now like the third one. So that's it's a very nice full circle moment there too. Just
we just got like there's so many full circle moments in your story. It's basically just a target at this point, like a target board of just how many circles that we have with each other.
It is, because like it's so cool, just like how one thing influenced my journey to come back, many years later to affect something now.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the coolest things that could happen as a cartoonist and as a person. Just like these stories actually have an end,
Yeah.
For next year I turn 30, which is gross to think about, but
I'm right there behind you. Like 28 gonna be 29 next year. I'm feeling it too.
It's just that everything that I've worked up to as a 29-year-old, it all kind of like the book is closed. It's closing because everything that I've worked up to this point has been resolved. It has been completed. I have achieved the things that I have wanted to achieve as a person and as an artist. There are still things I need to do. There's a lot of work ahead of me. Don't get me wrong, but it's just that the stuff that from growing up as just an isolated, black boy in the early 2000s to now the first black syndicated cartoonist in Indiana in 100 years.
Yeah.
Like the story has, the story that has developed all this time has kind of been nicely resolved. Everything all the trials and tribulations that I have been through have had a reason for it, have had a proper conclusion to itself. So now everything from now onwards is a new story.
Yeah. I was gonna make the metaphor of like think of it just like the Garfield books you have in the background. Like, yeah, you might be getting close to one, but when one of them's over, you have another one ready to go.
Yeah.
You may not know every single panel in there, but hey, it's gonna be a ride one way or another.
And I get to write the jokes.
There you go. There you go. Now, if people want to see those jokes or the panels or anything that you get to do from this point forward, because I know if they've gotten to this point of the podcast, they got to be excited if they're not already following you. Go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home.
Yeah, so the easiest way is suprdee2.com, SUPRDEE2.com. It connects to my Twitter, Instagram, and a few other social medias. Mm-hmm. I don't have my Blue Sky on there yet, but I'll do it eventually. Yeah. But more importantly, if you want to read Rosebuds, you can go to comicskingdom.com/rosebuds. You can subscribe to it for $2.99 a month and get early access to strips before even the newspapers get to them.
There you go.
So that's a really good perk to have, and just like early access to a little other stuff that's in the works. But also, you can read Rosebuds in your local newspaper.
There you go. Definitely do that. Take photos of it if they are in your local newspaper and tag D in it, because I'm sure D wants to see the fact that Rosebuds is in every single paper possible.
Oh my gosh, that's the dream.
And if you missed any links or whatnot, I'll be sure to have them in the description below. I'll be sure to I got you covered there. I'll even be sure that for the audience, if they want to, they can see the first time me and D have talked by linking that first episode in that description. So listen at your own risk, because like I said, the microphone I was using then is not the microphone I'm using now. Do you have any final words before we sign off?
Just thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for everything. Like, it's a legitimate joy to reconnect after all this time. It's such a joy to see that you're still thriving and doing all the things that you're loving to do. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for the people that are watching this that have been supporting me and just enjoying what I'm doing. Like, this couldn't be happening without you. And I hope I continue to make you proud, and we'll keep enjoying the stuff for time onwards.
I think that is how should I word this? Well, obviously, thank you for the kind words, and obviously, as you said, we've been along this path so far. Why am I gonna stop anytime soon? With that, all I have left to say is for the people at home, if you can, please pay your artists. Tell me what's wrong, tell me its parts in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can all open. Show me it all, pick me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening, I greatly do appreciate it, genuinely from the bottom of my heart. This was an interview that I've been wanting to have for a while, considering how much Dee genuinely meant to me for being the first guest to be on, and here we are 200 episodes later, and it felt like we haven't missed a beat, or anything else. Dee, if you've gotten up to this point, thank you. Thank you, and I cannot tell you how much I am so happy and proud for you for how far you've been able to grow since our last interview, podcast, whatever you want to call it. I recently had, so in preparation for this podcast, I said this in the episode, but in preparation of this episode, I decided to listen back to episode 1, and oh my god, guys. I'm going to leave it linked in the description below, but Jesus Christ, people, it is day and night with how I am. I was a lot more, if you think that I'm bad sometimes nowadays, if you think I'm bad when it comes to how, with me repeating words or me stuttering and all that kind of stuff, listen back to episode 1. It is bad. It is bad. Oh, goodness. I can't tell you how hard I cringed. Oh. And the microphone quality was kind of meh, but that was also because I was stupid and I'd gotten a separate mic after I gotten my first mic, even though the first mic was better. It's weird. Regardless, it was a real trip to listen back to that first episode, but it also gave me a bit of confidence in a way. Listening back to how I was then and how I acted and how nervous I was then compared to where I am now, to where I feel like I'm a bit more comfortable and confident with how I carry a conversation. I can't help but feel proud for myself more than anything else. I feel happy that I've gotten to this point to where I can listen back to how I was, 4 years ago and be like, wow, I have changed. I have progressed. Wow. I guess that it's natural, As you grow and as you continue to do the thing that you love, you look back on your old stuff, and while you're still proud of it at the end of the day, because without it, where would you be? It's nice to know that you can listen back and be like, I have developed. I have gone upward. I have improved since that time. It's wild more than anything else. But, I'm glad I got a chance to listen back. When I first started the podcast, I used to go back and just listen to all the episodes over and over again. And, as I start building up the catalog, I forget just where I came from sometimes. Or I should say, I forgot the exact details from where I came from. But if nothing else, listening back, preparing for this fantastic interview that I hope you guys absolutely loved, I'm certainly never going to forget as I keep moving forward and growing more. And I have you guys to thank for that. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to continue to make this stuff and to continue to present you guys with these quality conversations. You guys genuinely do mean a lot to me, and I appreciate you all.